let's bring we got a lot of James Ham's questions for June 16th. Happy birthday, Tupac. I knew James. I didn't want to. I know James was going to say that. I figured I'd say it first.
Well, it's
It,
Tupac's birthday. Is that what you said?
it is. Yeah.
All right.
How old
Yeah.
would he?
How are you going to celebrate? Oh, good question. I don't
I
know.
don't know either.
I'd imagine 54.
This was almost 30 years ago, right? Was it 96?
97,
97.
96, 96. Big was 97. So 96.
So 29 years ago.
Wow.
53. Because he was 20. Was he? How
I
old
thought
was
he
he?
was 20.
Or was he 27?
I thought he was 20. I
I
thought
thought
they
he
were
was.
both under 25.
Okay. Yeah. We'll work through the math. James, lots of questions. Let's start with this. Well, I guess let's just wipe the slate clean. Are you aware of the Sacramento Kings having a deal in place to acquire a first-round pick this year? Because apparently everyone else is.
I mean, like, yeah, there's possibilities that they can land a first round pick, but I mean, it just depends on what kind of first round pick. Look at the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets have 3 picks. They have 19, 26, and 27.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, all first round picks are not created equal. We've heard rumors for a while that there's, conversations with them trying to find a partner that could potentially land a first round pick in Sacramento. We've heard things of them going all the way up into the lottery, but that, of course, would cost them one of their bigger pieces to move all the way up there. But, like, look, until they acquire a pick, they don't have one.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even sure that at this point, like, in order to acquire a pick, that means that you're sending out a bigger piece than you're taking back. And that means that you're going to lose talent, but you're being compensated with a pick. And I'm not, I don't know that the Kings are in a position that they can do that right now. But hey, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I also look, I don't think it's going to be that expensive if you're to go trade with Brooklyn, because a lot of teams, they don't appreciate late first round picks, early second round picks, mid second round picks sometimes have as much value as late first round picks just because of the restrictions that are put on the players that you draft, the contract that you have to give a first round pick versus the contract that you have to give a second round pick. So we'll see.
Do you think that there's a second part of this? Do you think that they're making a play for a first round pick to draft or to use as draft compensation or trade compensation for a bigger deal?
Well, I would say this. If you somehow acquire a 2025 first round pick, that opens a door for you to trade your 2026 on draft night. If not, you have to wait until July 1st. So there's always a possibility of something like that where they're like, hey, let's free up what we have down the road. I just don't know. Again, like, there might be a player in this year's draft that makes sense for the Kings, but I do think that, they're having really, really difficult conversations and trying to figure out who their core is moving forward and whether, they're in the market to move off of a big time player and become more of a team that's, I don't want to say rebuilding as much as retooling. But again, I'm not moving on from a Malik Monk and taking back pennies on the dollar and a mid first round pick or Demonis Sabonis and again taking back a suspect pick unless I'm getting a whole bunch of other stuff that makes a deal make sense.
Hammer, we're entering, draft time, trade pick. Although one thing that isn't a must, but it's certainly something that we've talked about since the season has ended, is Keon Ellis. I stumbled across something from John Hollinger on The Athletic, and he had a pretty healthy value for Keon Ellis. Like if like what the Kings could sign him for, what the Kings may sign him for. And I was curious what you thought Keon Ellis's value if the Kings just threw their hands up and said, "Nah, we're probably not going to do this. Go have fun, kid." What would Keon Ellis's value be on the open market?
I'm going to put him somewhere between 8 and 12 million bucks a year. Like that's kind of the range I'd put him in. I don't think he'd get a full mid-level exception, but I might be wrong. I mean, he might be right in line at 14 million. The reason why is, I mean, like the contracts are going through the roof. The salary cap just keeps rising. It's going up 10% every year. So like $14 million a year seems like so much, but that's like 8% of the salary cap.
Mm-hmm.
Like of a team salary, maybe even like 7% of a team salary. So I definitely think that Keon is due a raise. But everything I've heard sort of around the team, like my general feeling with them is that they kind of value the flexibility they have going into this summer. And it's not like they have like this huge amount of flexibility where they can do anything, right? They're not a true cap space team. They're not below the salary cap, but they're well below the luxury tax and well below the first apron. So what they can do is take back sort of lopsided trades, or they could use their trade exception from the Kevin Herter trade at 16.8 million and use up more of that space between the salary cap and the luxury tax and sort of go acquire pieces. Well, if you go out and you give Keon Ellis a $10 million a year deal, you're going to lose the right to that, because that's going to eat up that space that you have, that gap between the salary cap and the luxury tax. So I would not be shocked at all if the Kings picked up the option on Keon Ellis and then figured out what they want to do down the road, whether that's 2 months from now or 6 months from now, and sort of push off the decision just a little bit. And that probably won't make Keon all that happy. I'm sure he would love to get a raise right now, and he's probably pushing for that. And there's even potential that he could say, "Hey, look, you didn't want to give me a raise now. I don't want to play for $2 million this year. So when we get to the end of my contract, I'm going to walk away." He'll be an unrestricted free agent if they pick up his option for this year. So they have decisions to make there, but I do think that they're hoping to push off that decision. They're hoping to push off the Keegan Murray decision until they're able to do whatever they're going to do on draft night, whatever they're going to do the first couple of days of free agency, whether it's trade or signing players or any of that. So they're kind of stuck in a tough spot with Keon, but they could also just work out a deal right now and have that deal go into effect next summer. So while he's a free agent right now, or while he's under contract right now, you can work out an extension and maybe give him a little bit extra on that new deal that he's going to get, that makes this year feel better.
Are there any particular deals or extensions or anything that can be done with Keon that might lend itself to, locking him up, but using him as a trade asset this summer?
See, that's where it gets tough, because if you're going to give him an extension this summer, um, but pick up the deal, the 2 million. So if he's going to have a contract extension that kicks in after this year, then he becomes like a base year compensation player, and his value going in and his value coming back to the Kings is skewed. And so that's not the best way to do it. Realistically, if the Kings pick up his option for this year, he loses a tremendous amount of trade value, because now it's kind of like the Jake LaRavia thing. You can trade him somewhere. He doesn't have the same restriction where he can only get paid 5.1 million at the end of the deal. But if he gets traded somewhere, he can just wait until next summer and be an unrestricted free agent and go play wherever he wants, and sign whatever deal that he can get. So it's by giving him an extension, you probably actually hurt your value in trading him, because again, the base year compensation thing. The easiest way to do it would be is if you weren't convinced on him, is to opt out of the deal, sign him to a contract extension right now where he would be under contract, and then after 6 months, you could turn around and trade him again. And so that would probably be the easiest way to create more value in him. But again, it's complicated and they have a lot of decisions to make, just like they do on Keegan. They can push a Keegan discussion till next summer without any problem. But for right now, like value wise, and keeping a player happy, you've got to figure that, massive contract extension is coming his way. But that can change super quick if you've got other plans for this summer, or if you might want to trade him. Because again, you'll get into that whole base year compensation where it's a difference between his salary today and his salary for next season. You don't just get to trade like a $9 million player with a $30 million starting salary for next year and trade him at $9 million. The NBA has a way of balancing the first this year's salary and next year's salary.
Would you push if you were in the inner circle for a Keon extension? Do you think he should be not with the idea of trading him in 6 months or anything like that? Like, would you push for the idea that Keon Ellis should be a part of this team moving forward?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I mean, like, look at the value of Herb Jones. Like, I don't think that there's a substantial difference between Herb Jones and Keon Ellis. Like, I don't. Like, Herb is a little bit better, but I don't, again, small forward version versus shooting guard version. Like, I really like Keon Ellis. I think that defensively he's incredible, and he's only going to get better. And the reason he's going to get better is he's going to get bigger and stronger. He's still a guy who's trying to grow into his like adult body, even though he's 25 years old. It just happens with everybody at different times. And it's tough for him over the last couple of years to put on weight, but I think he'll continue to get bigger and stronger. I think he continues to work on his game. He's around Sacramento a lot, trying to work on his game and trying to work with their staff. But again, it's difficult. I value him a lot more though than I would a player like Valanciunas. And if you're looking at the same dollar amount, basically like 10, 11 million bucks, if that's what Keon was to get, I would easily opt to move on from Valanciunas, trade Valanciunas in a way. And I really like Valanciunas. I think he's a good dude. But, we're talking about a 25-year-old guy that could probably start for you for the next decade in Keon Ellis. And, Valanciunas is in his 30s.
So in that respect, James, out of those three guys that I talk about often that I think can be a little redundant, Monk, Devin Carter, and Keon Ellis, you would be sold only on Keon Ellis, right? Like, it's like, I know you like the other players too, but like if you had to keep a guy, Keon Ellis would be, written in stone, and then I'll see what I could do with the other two.
Well, I don't really think of Monk and Keon Ellis as redundant. I do think of Devin Carter and Keon Ellis as redundant. Monk is, the best six man in the game. He's not a true point guard, but he's like Lou Williams. He's a dude that can play for years and years in this league, providing a big time scoring punch, but also his ability to distribute the ball in the pick and roll is elite. And so I think that there's totally a world in where Malik Monk and Keon Ellis play on the same team, and you need both of what they bring to the table. Even if I will continue to say, if they're both realistically, they're combo guards or shooting guards, right? And they're going to play behind Zach LaVine. But I think Monk can come off the bench and be a really effective lead guard off the bench with Keon Ellis. And I think they'd make a nice tandem off the bench. It's just, how are you going to manipulate your salary cap? How are you going to bring in another guard? Because no matter what, this team has to have a point guard moving forward. And so it just makes it complicated. And that's why you typically shouldn't trade a point guard for a shooting guard. And then, completely blow up one position where you have no point guards and you have, an abundance of shooting guards.
So let's stay with the with us or not theme. You brought up Keegan Murray a minute ago and how that extension can be, put off for another year. Of course, you risk, frustration with the player. You risk frustration with the agent. You risk a lot of things when you do that, especially for a player who was the 4th overall pick in the draft. I asked you this question about Keon. I asked you the same thing about Keegan. Should Keegan Murray get that contract extension and be a long-term component, not immediate trade bait, but a long-term piece for the Sacramento Kings in whatever Scott Perry is going to attempt to build here?
Oh yeah, I think so. Look, when you're the value to Keegan Murray is his versatility, right? And his potential and his untapped potential that for whatever reason the Kings decided to, basically thwart his development for a year. Like I think when we look around the league, there are a small group of players that you can think, okay, like if I'm just going to look for undervalued players on their team that I think have more potential, like how many players are out there in the league that are just totally underutilized and have more potential than what they've shown so far? And it's, it's not simple because everyone would be chasing these guys, but Keegan is clearly on that list of players that, he averaged 15 points a game in his second season. He should have taken the next logical step, which was to go to 18, and he didn't. And it wasn't his fault that he didn't take a step to 18. It's that you brought in more scorers, and then you had to change your starting lineup and add another scorer to your starting lineup, to where Keegan Murray is a guy who goes from like a potential 3rd option to a 5th option. And, that's just really, really difficult for a young player to continue to mature and grow as, to show more elements of his game when he's all the way down to like 10 or 11 shots per game. And not only that, but you added a guy shooting 17 times at the small forward spot. You added Malik Monk to the starting lineup, who's shooting 13 times a game. Like it just got really, really convoluted this season, and I feel bad for Keegan, but I think Keegan's got tremendous value on the market, and if the Kings want to cash out, that's fine. They're not going to get what they think they're going to get, but what you do have there is the player is probably much better than he looks on paper. And that's because he has all the skills that you need. He's a great 3-point shooter, but hasn't shown it the last 2 seasons. He's been okay. And he's a great defender that can defend multiple positions. It's just how much are you willing to spend on that type of value? And I don't know what his agent wants at this point, but I don't know what the Kings would be willing to pay. And his value as a Monty and West player versus his value as a Scott Perry player might be completely different as well.
It's going to be real interesting, like you said, to see, well, number one, if he stays here, how they use him and what opportunities they give him, or if he's on the open market, what you might be able to get from him. Amber, I'll ask you what you see, because I all jokes aside, I do like Keegan Murray. Like I like him. I think if you had better players around him, I think he'd be even better. That's a little different than maybe what you're saying. Like, I don't know if you should just give him the opportunities. I'd like to see him in a situation where he is your 4th option or something like that. And one of the things I say that is because I watch him play, and I never watch Keegan in anything he does. It's like, you need to give him more looks. You need to look at the way he handles the rock. Look at the way he creates. Look at what he
run plays for him.
Yeah, like give him the ball more, because I see with my eyes that he's capable of more. There's a thought process that he might be capable of more, but I think to his own demerit, to a certain degree, he hasn't shown it to me. Like, I don't think he can dribble that well. I don't think he can create off the bounce that well in the open court. He's not dynamic as a finisher. There are things visually that I actually see that I'm like, I don't know where this just all of a sudden comes from, because he's getting 4 more shots a game. But do you see like things out there that maybe I'm not seeing with him?
I don't see any difference between him and Cam Johnson this season. Like Cam Johnson, I think if Keegan Murray were to get traded to the Brooklyn Nets right now, I think he would absolutely excel. I think he'd average 18 to 20 points per game. Is he like a true like creation machine? No, but I mean, like, look, the guy finishes above the rim. Like maybe you could say he wasn't a great finisher as a rookie, but I mean, how many times this year did he get blocked? Maybe twice. How many times did he miss a dunk? I bet you he's like 96% on dunks, something crazy. Like he's not like a high flyer, if you will, but he's a player that can score at all three levels if you gave him the opportunity. It's just the creation, the ball handling that I would say maybe he's got to get a little bit better at. But when did he get an opportunity to show you that? Whether he can handle, creation off the dribble or because it's not like he turned the ball over a whole bunch of times. It's not like every time he put the ball on the floor, people stole it from him. And I don't think he comes from like the Rudy Gay or Jason Tatum school of dribbling where they dribble the ball up around their ear. Like he can actually handle the ball and he can play. And I just think that again, you have a 20 attempt guy in De'Aaron Fox. You have a 17 attempt guy in DeMar DeRozan. You got 13, 14 shots for whether it's Malik Monk or Domantas Sabonis. Like at some point, you run out of shots. And I think if the Kings were to walk into this season and have Keegan Murray as their starting three and have a defensive minded like stretch four, right? And if Keon Ellis was in the starting lineup and they had some other, like even if it's Keon Ellis and Zach LaVine, I think Keegan Murray can easily be your third option. You just have to make him that, and you've got to promote that to him. You can't just keep bringing in players that stymie his growth. And that's one thing that I think the Kings, they had a ready-made roster for him when he got here, and in year two, they gave him a little bit more. But then last season was just like a desperation year for the entire team where it's just like whatever happens, just roll the ball out there. Let's see what happens. And that's not the best way to bring along a young player.
So for the record, DeMar DeRozan literally ruined everything last year.
Well, no, I mean, I don't think he helped anything.
I got it.
Like, I mean, I get what you're like. It's just a square peg in a round hole, and it's not. Again, this isn't about DeMar. It's about the Kings not having a system that supports the type of player that DeMar is, and then having a system where they can keep that in check and control what's happening. And then when you fire a head coach and you bring in an interim and then you trade the best player, like it created a vacuum where DeMar DeRozan was the answer. Yeah, and I don't think if you walked into that season, anyone thought that DeMar DeRozan would be the answer to all of the Kings' problems. That's not how that season was supposed to go. He was supposed to be a piece to a puzzle, and by the end of the season, he was the number one option on the team.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's not exactly like the recipe for success is to hand everything over to a 35-year-old, like mid-range jump shooter.
Yeah, I saw. I would say this. I saw in that. I feel that playing game that was like the worst case scenario for everybody involved. But I thought that was a microcosm of it. Well, nobody else doing nothing.
Yeah,
no, they just tossing the ball around, missing shots, not being aggressive. And DeMar was like, all right, I'll do it then. Fine. Like I feel if somebody would have stepped up and been as consistent as he was this year, maybe things were a little bit different, but nobody was doing anything.
no, I get that. But also like in a weird way, like with Keegan, like I'll make a comparison here with Keegan. The Kings asked Keegan to defend everybody all season long, right? And it clearly knocked him off his offensive game. Like he was expending so much energy defending Steph Curry one night or LeBron or Kevin Durant, name that guy who's defending. but it kind of reminds me a little bit of what I've watched with the Sacramento A's. They have Soderstrom, right? Soderstrom played first base the whole first like 30 games of the season and was raking. He was he led Major League Baseball in the home runs with like 9, right? Then they brought up Nick Kurtz to play first base, and they shifted Soderstrom to the outfield.
Like very good. Very good.
I got you. They shifted Soderstrom to left field. So Soderstrom now then he goes back to first base because Kurtz got hurt and went on DL. On the season, Soderstrom has like 14 or 15 home runs. All but one of them come while he's playing at first base. When he's at first base, he doesn't have to think about everything else, and he's just hitting home runs. When he gets shifted to the left field and he's worried about playing a new position and making a mistake, it seeps into every aspect of his game, and he's totally ineffective. His batting average drops. His power production drops to nothing. He's not driving in runs like he normally does. You put him back at first base, he starts hitting home runs again. It's like, hey, why is that working out? If you gave Keegan Murray one job to do and then let him be the offensive player that he needs to be, he would be perfectly fine. But he's out there having to overthink every single game because he has to defend whoever the best player is on the opposing team. I mean, he's the guy who had to defend Jokic. Like, does that make sense? So one night he's defending Jokic and the next night he's defending Steph Curry? No, that's not the way basketball works. But that's the way the Kings have, built their roster where he's the only guy that can go out there. I mean, let's be honest, like Jake LaRavia, perfectly nice young guy, but all of a sudden he looks like the answer to all of your prayers. That shouldn't have been the case. Jake LaRavia is might be a league minimum player this year. He might make $3 or $4 million a year. He might get the $5 million that, to sort of cap out what he can make with the Kings. But I wouldn't be shocked if the Kings just walked away from Jake LaRavia this offseason either. But the fact is, he became like your second best option to defend Jokic. Now, tell me what kind of world that makes any sense, that you built a roster where your two choices to defend the reigning MVP aren't centers. They're 2 6'8" small forwards that are playing out of position. And that again, that's just like the way that this roster was incorrectly built from the beginning.
I heard 2 things there. I'm going to talk about them when we come back. I'm right here.
Oh, okay. I'm leaving because I can tell Kenny's using that tone. Well, I should just leave when James
it's two things.
All you do is bicker at James.
I heard something and 2 things came up.
Paul, but I know exactly.
I can't wait to talk Jordan Poole again. Hell yeah, Jordan Poole.
Nope. Kenny, lambast James when we return here. Sacramento sports leader, ESPN 1320.
That's funny.
Have a good weekend. Oh yeah, you built a bar. That's what you did.
Another
I got
one?
A bar for the boat.
Oh my goodness.
I'm getting really close to done. The one problem, I ordered cup holders that can hold like a Stanley cup or like a bottle of Basil Hayden, or not a big bottle of vodka, but the smaller bottle of vodka. But the stupid cup holders they make now, like they put like a secondary ring near the bottom, and so nothing fits in them. And it's like lame. So now I've had to order new cup
golden
holders.
One center all over again.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Never going on your boat with that kind of bar.
Nope. It's fun. I'm in project mode.
I was gonna say, it sounds fun.
Yeah, like it's sort of like putting together a puzzle in your head, and you're trying to design something.
I really wish I could do that stuff. I would just. I'm gonna build this.
So
can't even get my damn grill to work.
Crazy news. I want to get the original tweet. Hold on, guys.
Hey, Zabo, I have 3 wine fridges and
original tweet that just happened.
kegerator.
Ross Dellinger, I think it was, college football writer.
Mm-hmm.
NCAA Football Oversight Committee is providing to the D1 Council a recommendation not to support the waiver request from Sacramento State seeking transition to FBS. The authority to grant the waiver still remains at the D1 Council's discretion. So there's a couple
Trying
of
to
things.
block it.
Yeah, I was kind of looking through this a little bit, but there's a lot going on. But basically, the NCAA Football Oversight Committee is trying to keep Sac State from getting that waiver. Now, they don't have any decision making. This is on the D1 Council. They'll decide whether there's a waiver granted and they can become D1, or FBS. But the Football Oversight Committee is recommending they not support that waiver.
With no explanation given?
No.
All right.
A lot of speculation. Some people speculate. There's just a lot going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
And adding somebody, they're not, until they figure out the money and how they want to go about things, they may not want to add any more schools in FBS. But I don't care. They need to add them anyway.
Thanks.
I think there's probably a little bit of concern about how quickly Sac State is just like developed out of nowhere and signed guys out of nowhere and come up with a bunch of money out of nowhere. Brought in Shaq and Mike Bibby out of nowhere. Like, I think there should be at least a little bit of, hey, how is all this happening?
So a lot of people believe if they're denied, that Sac State will have grounds to file a lawsuit against NCAA, I guess, or
we're coming back, Hammer. You want to read that real quick, since that is news that matters, which is our new slogan, ESPN 1320.
Wasn't that
news that matters?
Wasn't that Channel 3?
It might have been. I don't know. Is it still Channel 3?
I don't know.
I was like, man, that sounds really good. I can't believe no one has used that before.
This came out about an hour and a half ago. Ross Dellinger, Yahoo. I think he's an NCAA football reporter. He tweeted out, NCAA Football Oversight Committee is providing to the D1 Council a recommendation not to support the waiver request from Sacramento State seeking transition into FBS. The authority to grant the waiver still remains with the D1 Council's discretion. He also says Sac State, if the waiver is granted, intends to move into FBS as an independent. Transitioning schools are normally required to hold an invitation from an FBS conference, a reason a waiver is necessary. So basically, the D1 Council is going to vote, I think, next week on whether to grant that waiver and allow Sac State to be an FBS independent. NCAA Football Oversight Committee, like you just said, is trying to say, hey, you guys should not grant this waiver to them. A lot of speculation on the reasons why. I don't know if it's specific to Sac State. I think there's a lot going on in college sports and college football right now. And a lot of people think that they may be feeling the NCAA Football Oversight Committee may be feeling like, hey, we don't know what's going to happen from day to day. Like, we don't need to be adding anybody.
Or
I think they're wrong, but yeah.
Or the NCAA needs to do something just to show they still have a pulse.
Could be.
Look, we can't manage these universities. We can't manage income. We can't manage NILs. What can we manage? Well, we can block the transfer of Sac State. Do it. Okay, but why? I don't care. Just do it. We're literally the most irrelevant entity in sports. Just do something so people might think that we're relevant.
That could be the case too. That absolutely could be the case. So a lot of things that I've read so far, this just came out about an hour ago once again, but to your point, the D1 Council, they have two other meetings that they're dealing with that could render any type of recommendation. Like on the 23rd and 24th, they have these other meetings for, I forgot exactly what it was, but they've got those more important meetings.
Mm-hmm.
On the 25th or 26th, they're voting on the waiver request. And from what I've read, those meetings on the 23rd and 24th may render that NCAA Football Oversight Committee's recommendation
Mm-hmm.
even more useless than it is right now.
Mm.
So the sounds of it sounds like it sounds bad for Sac State,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it very much is like 50-50.
Mm.
So
All right.
we'll follow it.
I guess we will. Do you want me to leave, or do you
No,
just wanna...
no. Well, I want you to say one of the things.
No, you do
you
it.
know.
No, because I know exactly where you're going. And so for those just tuning in, we were talking about Keon, Keegan, James's distaste for DeMar DeRozan and the way the roster was built. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. And really what Keon and Keegan should be if they're on the roster moving forward. James thinks they should be on the roster. I actually agree with James, unless there's a hell of a trade proposal out there. I'll ask you before you. I'll use this as your lead-in to tell James whatever you want to tell him. Do you think Keegan do you think Keegan and Keon should be on the roster next year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd love to have them both on the roster.
Okay.
Now I'm listening to everything though.
Yep. Yeah. Of course. Of course.
I think they're winning players and in the right situation. I think these are the type of guys that you can use to bolster your roster. You know what I mean?
James was laying out how, poorly constructed this team was, given the fact that the likes of Keegan Murray, Keon Ellis, they had to guard guys like Nikola Jokic one night. They had to guard every team, best player on a night-to-night basis, just moving the guys. You got to have out-of-play small forwards defending the likes of Nikola Jokic, and that garnered a reaction.
Yeah, I'll start there. That's the one I'll start. Why are we paying this guy $45 million again?
That's the one I knew was on the way.
Why? If our best option is LaRavia and Murray to guard Jokic, why is number 11 making $45 million a night or a year?
$45 million a night would be crazy.
That's what Rafael Devers makes.
Yes, right. But a year is very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are a lot of players that defend Jokic well. Well, actually, I won't even say that. There are a few players that defend Jokic well. Sabonis isn't. Yeah, and Sabonis isn't horrible at defending Jokic, but when you're going to different looks and stuff, that's when you're seeing guys like Keegan and all that stuff happen. I was looking to make sure that one of those games that I'm talking about, Sabonis missed. He was out of action.
JV went crazy that game too, I think.
Yeah.
Nasty boy went crazy.
They lost 116-110. The Kings did.
But they were like 20 in the third.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, the Kings aren't a good defensive team overall. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. There are times where Sabonis has played exceptionally well against Jokic. We watched that the year before where they beat up on the Nuggets a couple of times, but also times where Jokic is going to get over on you. The fact is, nobody should be defending Jokic by themselves. That's not the way the league works when you have an MVP caliber player. Now, I think that Sabonis plays Jokic way better than he plays Embiid. For sure. And look, Sabonis isn't a natural shot blocker. He's not a bad position defender though. And you look at the advanced metrics, he's not. So look, you need more players. You need a shot blocker on this team. You needed a shot blocker for years that wasn't named Hassan Whiteside. You just did. And they didn't go address that situation. They needed a shot blocker that could play alongside Sabonis. If you know that a guy has one spectacular weakness that he doesn't defend the rim, then go out and try to help him. So
I actually think a little Oh, I'm sorry. I'll shut up.
No,
I think
go
there was
ahead.
no. There was a part 2. I knew what I didn't know I didn't know if that one was going to be part 1 or part 2, but I knew you were going to trash Domas at some point.
Well, no, I just asked the question.
But you're a broadcast journalist.
That's all I did.
You said there were 2 things. That's one.
The other thing was, and neither one of them were bad, I don't think. But Keegan just might not be that guy. Like if
in what regards?
In regards of like like we can't say that he's this all defense first team type caliber player, and then like say like, well, he got to guard the best player all the time. That's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they do, and that's why I'm not that worried about his points per game, because I know when you are guarding the best perimeter guy on the team every night, yeah, you're not going to be able to score 18, 19 points per game. Like, I'd much rather have Keegan at 13, 14, 15 points a night, being a guy that guards the best 3s and 4s on the other team, and yeah, do that. That's why I kind of wanted a guy like DeMar in here. I need somebody else to pick up the scoring load, because I'm not going to ask Keegan to be the number 1 defender and get that points per game up to 19, 20 points a night. Mm-hmm. That's asking too much of him. Mm-hmm. I like, not even like dissing him. Like, that's unfair to ask of him. Mm-hmm. So yeah, he should be asked to guard the best player every night. And I personally don't need to see him up to 18, 19 points per game if that's what I'm asking him what to do.
I would just say, like, yeah, if he's just defending the best 3s and 4s on the opposition, that's fine. But that's not what he's doing. You know, like, do you see Jaren Jackson Jr. out there chasing Steph Curry around outside of like a switch every once in a while? No. Like, and that he's a starting power forward for Memphis and considered one of the best defensive players in the league. Like, he has to, like, they move Keegan around all over. Like, again, just look at Memphis, for example. We need you to slow down Ja. We need you to slow down Desmond Bane. He's going crazy. Like, when was the last time you saw Keegan Murray defend Santi Aldama or even Jaren Jackson Jr. for all that much of the game? They don't ask him to, because they've got him running around chasing small people. And then other games, big people. It's like, oh, wait, we don't need you to defend Austin Reeves. We're not worried about that. We're going to need you to go defend either Luka or LeBron.
That's your job. That's your job. If you're the best,
I get that.
You guard them.
I get that, but that's not the way, like, every team is built, where one guy has to defend the most difficult player on the opposition every single night. And I'm talking every position on the court, not just your position or the position adjacent to your position. We're talking about every single position on the floor. And I know modern basketball, there's a lot of switches and everything else. So, I mean, that's going to happen. But, like, Keegan has a tremendous amount on his plate every night. And look, I think by lessening that, by starting 2 defensive players and allowing a guy like Keon to slow down a guard, you can free up Keegan to be more engaged offensively and actually have energy to do something offensively. But we'll see.
You brought up Jaren Jackson Jr. there a second ago, Hammer. What did you and Kyle Matson, the collective insiders, what did you guys think about the Desmond Bane trade over the weekend?
Like, I think I've got a little bit like different approach than most people on it. Like, they set the market really, really high. Like, and I'm not sure that market is going to hold up for other players. And if it does, then it does. But I don't know. I mean, if you're going to go around the league and you're going to find like the one perfect guy for your team, and you think that that's Desmond Bane to fit next to Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero and even Jalen Suggs, like, I do think Bane is like a really, really good fit with that team. I just don't know about giving up 4 first-round picks and a pick swap for a guy who has never been an all-star and might not ever be an all-star. He might be an all-star in the East, but who, hasn't been an all-star. It's a lot to give up, and I get it. if you're going to be aggressive and you're going to go try to extract a player from a team that probably didn't want to trade him at all, it's going to cost. I'm just surprised that it costs that much. And like, look, you're putting a lot of eggs in that basket. If it doesn't work out, if Desmond Bane doesn't rise to the occasion, if he doesn't make you that type of team, there's going to be a very difficult ability to get all of that back, which is what Minnesota, they've actually made the conference finals twice with Rudy Gobert after the Gobert trade. But you remember there's that point where they're like, oh, we have to trade Gobert after year one because they get to the playoffs and he just gets played off the court. No one was giving him, anywhere near what they gave Utah to go get him out of Utah. No one was offering four first round picks plus first round pick in Walker Kessler. And then I think pick swaps. Like, there's all kinds of stuff in that deal. And no one else in the league was going to give up that for Rudy Gobert, except for Minnesota. And hey, it's worked out as far as getting to the conference finals, but it hasn't worked out as far as him being able to stick on the court in crucial games because he just can't defend the perimeter. I think this is like, it's not going to be apples and oranges, but that's a lot to give up for a guy who is a very, very good scorer. But, there are a lot of really good scorers in the league. And I guess that's just the guy that they centered on and were able to go get him.
D'Lo asked a really good question earlier. Is there another guy out there that might be on the market that we didn't see, like Desmond Bane just was? Like, we've talked about so many players in the last month and a half, but not, at least me, not once did I think about or even talk about Desmond Bane, and that came out of nowhere. Is there anybody at the top of your head that, might fit that bill that we're just overlooking that might be available?
I don't know. I mean, I think that's always going to be the question, right? Is there someone out there that is on a team that everyone thinks is pretty much untouchable, but isn't? Or that you can just keep throwing picks at them until they say yes? Like the guy that I would be, if I'm the Kings, right? And I'm sitting here right now walking into this summer and I saw what they just got for Desmond Bane. I'm taking that same exact offer and I'm going to Philly and I'm asking them if they'll give up Tyrese Maxey. That's the guy that I would go after. He solves every single one of your long-term, short-term problems. He's a better defensive guard than almost anyone else at the point guard position. He's just an absolute gamer. And if you could go get him out of, we're talking about, you want to find like the head of the snake, but somebody that doesn't have some weird issue with them. If we look at all of the players we hear about the Kings, so Trey, LaMelo Ball, who's the other point guard that they're, and John Morant. I mean, we see glaring issues with all three of them. Trey doesn't play a lick of defense, although I like Trey. I think Trey could actually, in a different situation, might be better than he is offensively in Atlanta. LaMelo Ball can't stay healthy. And on top of that, like, super inefficient scorer, turns the ball over a ton. John Morant can't stay healthy and can't stop waving guns around on Instagram and keeps getting suspended, or has gotten suspended multiple times. Again, like, owed a ton of money and like unstable, if you will. Like, Tyrese Maxey's the one guy you're like, hey, I don't see any problems with Tyrese Maxey. Go give up everything. Like, whatever you have, go ahead and give it up for him if that's a direction that you would go. Now, I don't know if Philly would ever trade him, but that's where I would go. And I think there's probably one or two more players in the league that are like that aren't household name superstars right now, but very well could be if given like carte blanche to run their own team. He's a guy that I just look at and go, yeah, I would go all in on Tyrese Maxey, 4 first-round picks, 2 pick swaps. If they say we want 5 first-round picks, like, okay, that's fine. Like, just get the deal done. But I don't know.
I think that's probably, I don't know that that's ever a possible deal. I don't think it's even remotely possible this year. I think Daryl Morey's dumbass is going to try one more time to see if Joel can play professional basketball for the bulk of a season, and if that breathes any life into Paul George. Tyrese Maxey will kind of be the guy to run that whole thing. And then this is it. It's it for Joe. It's it for Paul George. And I would think if anyone in that organization has any sense, this would be it for Daryl Morey. This is your last opportunity. You did enough tanking to land 6, I think, was their pick. There was a number that they couldn't fall out of, and they got it. They were able to keep their
top
pick.
4, weren't they?
Were they top 4?
Yeah, I think they got
Who?
the 3rd.
Did they?
Yeah.
Yeah, Philly has the 3rd pick.
I always forget whatever happened past the Spurs, and then what? Charlotte's 4th,
Yeah,
right?
Charlotte's 4.
So Philly did move up then.
Because they went to commercial and Daryl Morey was.
That's right. Yeah.
Had his head on the table.
Oh, no, I'm gonna puke. Daryl Morey. But anyways, James, the point is, I think they're gonna hold on to that one more year, and then I don't know that Tyrese will ever be on the market. Maxey will ever be on the market, but I think this just has to be it for Philadelphia. And then once you get there, all bets got to be off. Like, you've got to figure out how you're going to construct this team, because you're going to have you've got to figure out a way to get through this. And maybe you can't. Maybe you're just stuck with it. Maybe Tyrese just has to rot with the carcass of that roster and whoever the rookie is, whoever the third pick is. That's it.
Yeah, I'm not convinced of that, though. I mean, we've heard enough about Philly looking to move up to number 2, where they would likely take Devin Harper. Is that his name?
Not Dylan.
Dylan Harper.
Dylan Harper. And if you're going to go up and draft Dylan Harper at number 2, that tends to make me believe that you might be looking at a different point guard down the road, or to like sort of build out your team a different way. Again, I think they've got Jared McCain. They've got a guy like Quentin Grimes. Like, I'm not saying that they're going to shop him, but if you want to move up to number 2 and they're telling you don't have enough assets to move up to number 2 from number 3, you certainly would if you made a trade with the Sacramento Kings and gave them Tyrese Maxey. You'd have all the assets, and again, throw in a couple of players. You're gonna have to match salary there, but that's where I would like focus my attention. But again, like, if he's not available, he's not available. You can't. If a team says no and keeps saying no, you can't just keep throwing more things at them and expect them to change sort of the path they're on.
We're gonna send a mass email to all the general managers. Look, we got 4 picks, 2 players. You pick the players. I need a point guard of a high quality. Who do you got?
We got 4 picks. You pick the player. Oh, don't worry. We're getting back in the first round this year, so we got that one too.
Yeah.
What?
How? Doesn't matter. Jake Fisher said we are, so we are.
And
I didn't say. Where did Jake Fisher say that the Kings were moving back for sure? Moving into the first round for sure.
He said they've been telling.
He said they've been telling people that they are acquiring a pick for this draft, a first round pick for this draft.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's very possible. And I like the conversations I've had around the team are like, yeah, we can get into the first round, but if we're going to get into the first round, it's because we have to know that we're in love with a player, a specific player that we're like, we want to go get. And if they don't have that player in mind, or if that player doesn't fall to where they get the pick, then it's like, what are you moving up to like number 19 for? Or what are you moving up to like 23 for? Unless you really have someone in mind, very specific.
Just confused. How are they getting a first round pick?
I don't know. I told you.
It's not a comfortable way.
They're trading 2 future first round picks and a second round pick or something.
No, it could be something like trading Malik Monk and taking back a much lesser version of Malik Monk and a first round pick.
Great. Well, we'll figure it all out together. Once Jake Fisher tells us,
He's going to tell us. That's one good thing about Jake.
Yeah, yes, indeed. We appreciate you so much for being with us. We're going to head over to 102.5 if you want to come hang out with us over there. If not, make sure you're locked in. We got the NBA Finals coming up here. Coverage beginning in just about 30 minutes, and we got the Insiders beginning tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. here on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320.
Vamos, Buster Posey.